Welcome back to episode two of the Between the Lines podcast. Hope you enjoyed episode one last week. And today we're going to talk a bit about the NFL, the NBA, and let's just get started with the NBA. Some records were broke this week. So start off today with a keep three, cut five, Jay. So I'm going
All
to give
right.
you eight different records that are in the NBA right now.
All
And
right.
you're just going to simple keep three, cut five. I'm not going to say anything else, just a bunch of vibes. So
All right. Sounds
let's see
good.
what you have.
Let's run it.
All right, so your first one is going to be Bill Russell's record of 11 rings. Are
I'm
you
gonna
going to
keep
keep
that
that?
one. Game's all about winning, so we
Okay,
gotta keep
okay.
that one.
All right, so you kept Bill Russell.
All right, keeping that one.
Let's go to our next one. Steph Curry being the all-time three-point, keeping or cutting it.
We're gonna keep that one. We're gonna keep that one. So only got
Okay,
one keep left, but
only
we're
one
taking.
keep left already. Are you
We're
going to
yeah,
lock it in?
yeah. We're
Okay,
locking that
okay,
one.
locked in. All right, the next one is Hakeem Olajuwon's all-time block record.
Love my guy Keem, but Wemby's probably coming for that soon, so we're gonna get rid of that one for now.
Okay, respect, respect. The next one is John Stockton being the all-time steals leader.
We're also gonna get rid of that one. Defense matters, but I think that one probably gonna get broken at some point too. So we're gonna leave that one out.
Okay, so you've kept two and you've cut two.
Yep.
So we got four more. Only
All right.
one more keep.
All right.
Let's see. The next one I'm going to give you is Klay Thompson's record for the most points in a quarter, 37 in one quarter.
That one I'm also gonna say we're not keeping.
Okay, cutting Klay Thompson. No respect for respected one Splash Brother, not the other one.
Yeah, a little bit more respect for the chef.
All right, it's two more here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, your next one is Russell Westbrook having the all-time triple-double record, keeping or cutting it. Not in a season, just like cumulative.
Um, I'm gonna say we're getting close on it, but I think this one we're gonna delete this one. As
Okay.
much as I respect that record and everything, I think there's a little bit of stat padding there too. I think it's getting broken at some point very soon.
Okay, okay, respect. So
So we got one and
one
one.
left. You got one keep. You kept all your cut everything else. You got one keep left. So you kept let's see, you had Steph Curry's three-point record,
And then the Bill
Bill
Russell.
Russell's rings, and then you cut Clay's points in the quarter, Hakeem's blocks, Stockton
Stockton
steals,
steals, and
Russ
then
triple
Russ triple double.
doubles.
All right.
Okay, so two more. You have one cut and one keep left.
All right.
I'm gonna go Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points in a game.
We are keeping that one, in fact.
Okay, interesting choice. Locking it in, keeping
We're
it.
locking that one. 100 points. That's probably. I mean, maybe we'll see it again, but right
Okay.
now it's never been done yet, so we're keeping it.
Okay. All right. So, and your last one, I mean, you should know your host. LeBron James all-time scoring record. Unfortunately,
Oh
it's a
man,
cut
I
for
should
you.
have seen that one coming. That's an unfortunate cut, but I mean, you never know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe some kid who's probably a seventh grader right now might break that record someday.
True.
We'll have to see. But right now, we've never seen the Wilt one be broken. We never seen the Wilt one, anyways. But we've never seen it be broken
Yeah. I mean,
too.
there are questions about that one, but
Yeah,
we'll get into
that's a
that.
topic for a summer podcast. Maybe we'll get into that one.
Podcast. All right.
But
So, we talked about a bunch of records, and it's a good time for that. We just saw Bam Adebayo score 83 points in a game. And I mean, there are a lot of questions about it was probably the most unethical scoring performance according to some analysts. Not a lot of fans. He broke the record for most free throws made and attempted in a game, but end of the day, 83 points, 83 points. He broke Kobe's record. What are your thoughts on his performance?
as much as I want to like sort of hate on it and the aspect of taking that many free throws and what they were doing towards the end of the game, not only was it something that you might consider a lot of people consider unethical in the space of like the general NBA discourse, it's also pretty funny if you were watching the end of that game, just seeing the Wizards desperately trying to double or triple team this guy as soon as he crossed half court and Bam heaving up absolutely any shot to get the type of free throw into the shooting motion and everything. But as much at the end of the day, they were still trying to foul him just to stop him from scoring, and they just couldn't do that. He was still getting and ones at some points too, right? He was getting some and ones and just turning that into free throw buckets too. Um, and so just overall, like I would still consider that he put together a performance that we've never seen before. The 83 points, regardless, some of it has come with free throws, but that's just how we've seen like the game evolve today. We do see a lot more points, total inflated point totals because of the increase in the free throw attempts and the free throw makes and things like that. And in terms of like the ethicalness of the game and how much does that sense, obviously Kobe's 81 game didn't have as many free throws, but he did have a like solid amount of points going in the first, second, and third quarter, right? He was going into the fourth quarter with roughly 70 points, if I remember correctly. And at that point, it's not like you're not going to want to tell your coach, "Yo, take me out," like it's something like that. You're going to want to go and chase that record. And I
Of
I
course.
encourage any player to want to chase that record. What did you think about like the ethicalness of like the game? What were you seeing from
Yeah,
the
I mean,
discourse?
like I I like just if you look at just the box score, obviously it's like, a lot of free throws, whatever.
Hmm.
But end of the day, 83 points is 83 points. Like takes a lot of stamina to want to play the whole game and get that many points. And I feel like partly like the free throws weren't even really his fault. Like, the Wizards, they were triple teaming him, intentionally fouling, doing anything they could to
Yeah.
get him to stop getting like the Kobe's record. But obviously the Heat also played into that, intentionally missing free throws,
Yeah.
intentionally fouling the other team up 30. But honestly, I look at it like Kobe would have wanted his record broken.
Yeah.
He's a fan of the game. So
That's valid.
I think Bam did it. It's definitely the unexpected. Now the scoring record list goes Wilt,
Bam,
Bam,
Kobe.
Kobe, like Wilt again,
Yeah.
Luca. It's little
A
like
little out of order from what
polar
was
bear in
probably
Arlington,
expected.
Texas. But I mean, hey, someone did it. It's good for the game. Records are
Yeah.
meant to be broken.
Yeah. Speaking of records, we also saw another record go down. This one, a Wilt record is actually the one going down. We saw Shea beat Wilt Chamberlain's record for the most 20-point games in a row, right? And obviously today he just continued that streak. Today the Thunder taking down the Timberwolves and he continuing that streak, getting the and one on Ant in the last minute or last couple minutes to keep that streak going. So what do you think about that streak? Just seeing like the consecutive strong scoring outputs, was seeing that obviously playoffs excluded from that, but just the consistency of his outputs like over this season and the entirety of last season. What do you think about what he did with that record and breaking
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it's honestly incredible. Like I've become a pretty like decent Shea fan, just like purely he's a mid-range master. He's like the king of balance. He knows how to get to the spots, how to dominate. So I think like a lot of so in last year, there's a lot of hate towards Shea, like free throw merchant stuff like that. I think this year the narrative has maybe shifted it, like just like disliking OKC as a whole. I mean, like hating on greatness, it
Yeah.
happens. But I think it's honestly crazy to say I'm not even surprised he broke the record. Like he
Yeah.
literally night in, night out, he's gonna get to his same spots in the mid-range. He's now added a three. He's like almost 50, 40, 90 on the year. Like Shea just continues to surprise. I mean, he could get them their second ring in a row this year.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cool record also because Willard's competition wasn't the greatest. Questions on the legitimacy of who he's facing.
Yeah.
So Shea doing it in today's game is pretty impressive.
The absolute consistency that we're seeing is something that we haven't even seen from other superstars in the last couple eras and things like that. So that's interesting to see. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up our NBA talk, we want to talk a little bit about what we think our game of the week is going to be. And we settled on Wolves versus Celtics this week, a little bit later this week. Obviously with March Madness starting up soon, we might see a little bit decrease in like the national TV games and stuff. We got a big one before that tournament kicks off. Any thoughts, early thoughts on the Wolves Celtics game we have this week?
I mean, it's a good game, two powerhouses in each conference going at it. Obviously Jason Tatum debuted since our last episode.
Yep.
And he looked pretty. I mean, obviously, taking almost a year off, he's not going to look perfect, but
Yeah.
looked pretty good for coming
Pretty
back from
solid
torn
for a guy
Achilles.
coming on from less than a year of a torn Achilles.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So hopefully he'll be there. I know he's had some games with like injury management. Hopefully he's in there. But even if he's not, I mean, Celtics #2 seed going at the Timberwolves. The West, every game matters right now. So I feel like both teams are going to be vying for that win. And what a good primetime matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be a good matchup. Obviously, young superstar and Anthony Edwards sort of taking the leap this season that we're all expecting to see from him. Like you said, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the two Jays, and the Celtics going back and forth in that one. So let's talk about the NFL a little bit and delve into that. Obviously, free agency starting up this past week with the legal tampering period beginning. We're seeing teams like sign their deals officially with their players and stuff like that and re-signing some of their older players. So let's just talk about that. We're going to describe it sort of in like a winners and losers sense, right? I can go to some of that. So we're going to start with the man himself, the man that authored the Tank for Tua phrase back in 2019 and 20 when he's back at Alabama. Tua Tagovailoa, obviously the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins over the last couple of years. Not working out the way they expected, so they end up releasing him from his huge contract extension they just signed in 2024. So now he's going to be on a one-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons at about $1.2 million per year, and the Dolphins eating a whole $100 million in salaries cap. And like you were telling me earlier, it's actually the largest dead cap hit that a team has had to eat since Russ was leaving the Seattle Seahawks back in the day. So we're seeing that contract, and obviously the reason we're putting Tua in this winter section is because with the uncertainty around Michael Penix with his injury, Tua gets a chance to come into the offseason and be like, all right, I can earn my spot as a starter in this season. Obviously, it's with a new team, so he's going to have to sort of build up his rapport again with the coaching staff and the players and things like that, but he has the ability to win that starting job. A different team, maybe a change of scenery. We've seen that a lot of times. The guys at their second location get a better start, and they can sort of free up a little bit and like a little bit less of a weight on their plate. So how do you feel about the Tua contract and how he's going to play with the Falcons? And then what are some of your other winners of free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for Tua, like he couldn't have asked for a better situation to go into. He's still gonna get, I think like roughly 54 mil from the Dolphins for his contract that he's due. And then he gets like probably one of the most high-powered offenses in football. You know, Bijan Robinson, Drake
Yep.
London,
A lot
Kyle
of
Pitts,
weapons.
good O-line, like really good offense. They're just a QB away. And I mean, Tua, you know, he was a top 10 pick for a reason. He had some like decent years with the Dolphins. You know, like Tyreek had back-to-back like 1,700-yard receiving years. So Tua can get guys to produce. Obviously, it didn't work out. He earned the nickname, you know, Tua turned the ball over. But new start for him. It's still going to be a QB battle with Penix. We don't know who's going to win the job, but at this point in his career, he couldn't really ask for a better situation. So I think he's a winner for sure.
Yeah.
I think another winner has to be the Rams. I mean, we saw that, you know, they started out the year really hot last year. You know, they brought in Devontae Adams. Their Puka Nacua was cementing himself as one of the best in the league. Stafford was like entering a new prime at like his like old age that he's at, playing like he won the MVP. But it just didn't click, you know, they couldn't beat the Seahawks, they couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
And so one problem that they had all year was their secondary. You know, they had a good D-line led by Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and offense is obviously high-powered. So they go ahead and they pretty much just stole the Chiefs' two like secondary guys, you know, Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie. They got him over. They said, you know, Stafford, you're coming back for a year. We're going all in this year.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty big win for them. They get the two pieces they were missing and make a push for the ring.
Yeah, and you see that the Chiefs, obviously, last year, not having a great season, obviously Mahomes going down with the injury towards the end of the season. But even in the beginning of the season, the games that were somewhat winning or still close in, like, defense was still keeping them in games slightly, right? So you see that maybe that's the reason they want to take the corners from these teams. So they take their cornerback tandem of Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson and take these guys from Kansas City, displace them all the way to LA, and you say, all right, you're now our starting cornerbacks, and we're going to see how that works out.
Yeah.
Obviously, last season they lose 2 games to the Seahawks, and obviously the offense did their best, and the Seahawks had a really great team last year, but you can sort of put some of that on the defense. In the first game, that going down to a 2-point conversion at the end to seal a really high-scoring game there, and they gave up a lot of points to that. Obviously, a strong wide receiver core led by Jackson Smith and Jigba on the Seahawks side. And in this the NFC Championship game, same thing, a lot of points given up. So helping bolster that defense is always going to be a good idea. And the next one I think we're going to touch on is the previous quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, now signing officially with the Minnesota Vikings to be their quarterback in Kyler Murray. Obviously, a little bit uncertainty again with the Vikings this season and their quarterback situation. That's why it's good to see. That's why it's good to put Kyler in this winner section, just to know that he has a chance to maybe win the starting job over JJ McCarthy. What are your thoughts on Kyler signing with them and just the overall situation with that?
I mean, like similar to Tua, you know, a guy coming into the league with like high expectations. Kyler, arguably even more expectations, you know, former Heisman winner. But I mean, he's going to go into an offense with like arguably a top 3 wide receiver. Yes, Justin Jefferson had it down here, but I mean,
you could say that's partly due to the quarterback too.
Probably, yeah, due to 9 at quarterback.
He can increase, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Kyler, you know, just like with Tua, it's going to be a QB battle for who wins it. But I think it's also going to be an eye-opening experience for Kyler. If he can't win this QB battle with like JJ McCarthy, then he's got to reevaluate his options.
Yeah.
Maybe go back to the MLB or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
he's got that. He still has that contract waiting for him with the Athletics,
does.
I think. So we could always revisit that.
But it's good. I mean, he's similar to on a 1-year deal for pretty much the minimum, but he's still going to get almost all of his money that he was guaranteed with the Cardinals. I think it's like roughly 35, 36 mil. But good for them, and hopefully the Vikings, you know, quarterback has been their problem for a really long time now. They have Kirk Cousins, JJ McCarthy, haven't really figured it out. So for them, this could be their guy. But,
then let's touch on our next team that we have in the winners, a team that you know very, very well. Your hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you think about their moves that they've done this year? And why would you say they're one of the winners of free agency so far?
Yeah, I mean, purely, you know, coaching situation, maybe not ideal. Mike McCarthy wasn't really what a lot of fans wanted, but purely the free agency, you know, the players they brought in, I think they did an excellent job. So, you know, one problem has always been wide receiver. Since like AB and Juju left, it's pretty much just been like, you know, a bunch of guys who were either locker room problems or just couldn't consistently perform. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, likes of them. So, you know, bringing in a guy like Michael Pittman, who's pretty much a quarterback's best friend, you know, reliable possession receiver.
Yeah.
He's
tall target, hard
tall
to miss.
target,
Yeah.
really hard to miss. He has Pitt in his name, maybe it's meant to be, but and getting him for relatively good value. It was under 20 mil a year for 3 years. He's definitely on the older side. He's 28, but I mean, he's still technically in his prime, starting at 27. So,
yeah. And you don't want to get a guy that's too young that like might have some more issues or things like that. You know what he is. He's a little bit more established.
Yeah, more established. So hopefully that takes a little pressure off of DK Metcalf. Obviously, we lost Calvin Austin, so kind of fills the void there. And then I think another big move was getting Jaquan Brisker in the secondary. You know, I mean, I had to watch tragically our secondaries get torched. Only Joey Porter Jr., favorite corner, best corner in the league, some might say, but pretty much him just anchoring our entire secondary. We had Jalen Ramsey, who's like a big play splash guy, but not really reliable. So getting a guy who was pretty consistent for the Bears, bringing him in could be good. And then some other signings that are good are, Rico Dowdle. We lost Kenneth Gainwell to the Bucks, so bringing in a guy who ran for 1,000 yards last year, who had two insane games back to back, he could be nice in the second or in the running back room. But I think Steelers did a relatively well job. We'll see. Ultimately, what's been the problem for the last almost 10 years or like 6 to 8 years is quarterback situation. Is A-Rod coming back? Is it Will Howard's time redrafting someone? We'll see. But I think overall the Steelers did a great job. And let's stick in the AFC while we're at it. I think the Raiders are winners, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Raiders, you just have to consider them winners based on like how many moves they made, just the volume of transactions that they made this season to just like bolster their roster. Obviously, a team that wasn't as strong last season. So you see the Raiders, they bring in a lot of guys, right? They trade for Teron Johnson from the Bills. They bring in Quay Walker from the Packers to start at their middle linebacker position, re-signing Eric Stokes at corner. Obviously, the biggest move of all, getting Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah.
And then we see obviously the whole deal with the Max Crosby trade. Originally, they're getting him out of there, getting the 2 first-round picks back. But it seems like he is going to be coming back to the team, and all indications look like he's excited to come back, right? He's tweeting out and posting a lot of things on Instagram saying he's ready to get back in on the grind with his teammates. So that's something that you could see almost as you were thinking of going into next season without this absolute like destructive force on the defensive line for you. And now you can almost think like you're adding that in back with like no net cost at all or anything like that. So just thinking about that, that could be a good thing. Obviously, hoping everything meshes with that just in the locker room properly. But you're just seeing that they have a lot of money to spend, and I think they spend it in the right positions. They're getting a starting linebacker in Quay Walker that while at some points with the Packers last season, he might have had a little bit of a couple missteps here and there playing the running correctly, but he was playing alongside Edge Cooper that season, which helped. And now we'll have to see how he does against like with the rest of the linebackers that the Raiders have on their roster. But just seeing with a little bit more experience under his belt, how he can perform then. And obviously Tyler Linderbaum, guy getting a really big contract. That's like another thing we can discuss, how the center market sort of changed now.
Yeah.
But getting a really big deal and securing the offensive line, the center of their offensive line, for potentially their new starting quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback coming in the draft this year. So we'll see if they draft him. But just getting a lot of secure guys, just guys that have a really high floor almost, to just make sure, let's get the base of the team just a little bit higher in terms of the talent and just increase around that. But sticking with the center market, like we just discussed with Tyler Linderbaum, how do you think this sort of is going to affect it? Because you've seen like the deal previously, like Creed Humphrey, I believe, was the previously most high-paid starting center.
Yeah.
And you see Tyler Linderbaum get this 3-year, $81 million contract, right, up to $27 million per year. You think this is going to you think this is more of like an outlier and then like you're not really going to see offensive line deals this much? Or do you think this is really going to boost up like the contracts for specifically centers and guards? We already know tackles get paid a lot, but centers and guards, do you think this you can see like bringing that up for them?
Yeah, I think that because like as you mentioned, Creed Humphrey was the previous leader at roughly like 18 mil a year. And now Linderbaum's all the way at 27 million a year. So pretty much drove the market up like 50%. And like you said, like, tackles get all the money, but I don't think this is really an outlier. I mean, I think it's like, once one guy gets paid, the rest get paid. So we're gonna see guys like, like Zach Frazier soon get paid on the Steelers. But I think if you're a center, you should be happy. You're gonna get a lot more. If you're,
a GM of a team or running the contracts for a team, maybe a little bit unfortunate. You're gonna have to shell out a lot more cash next time.
Definitely.
I think the last thing that we want to talk about for our AFC is in the AFC, and specifically one of the teams that we want to talk about winners is the Miami Dolphins. A little bit becoming Green Bay South and getting our director of player personnel as their GM. Getting the defensive coordinator for them as the head coach, and Jeff Hafley. And then obviously their new starting quarterback, moving on from Tua, they're going to get Malik Willis, who sort of revived his career after this bad start with the Tennessee Titans, sort of reviving that. 2 good years with the Green Bay Packers, coming in as a backup when Jordan Love was out and playing really well in those couple starts that he had. And getting on a pretty team-friendly deal, I would say, something that like a lot of people were anticipating he would go a little bit closer to like $30 to $40 million, somewhere in that range. And then get him on a contract that's like 3 years for $68 million. So like roughly around like 25, something like that, $1 million, a little bit less than that. So what do you think about that? Any other moves they made, and any other winners that you had in mind from that?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins and Malik Willis are both winners in this case. I mean, the Dolphins, like, they're eating like a $100 million dead cap hit with Tua, but they made the big move to move on. A lot of teams might just like stick with some guy because they're due contractually, but they took the big step of getting Tua out and bringing in who they think could be the next guy. I think the big question for Malik is going to be like we saw him do it in a smaller sample size of games last year. Played really well, pretty much as well as you would ask for any guy coming in for Jordan Love.
Yeah.
But can he do it for a full 17 game season is the
Yeah.
question. But I mean, I think the Dolphins they did it well. You know, they got rid of Tua. They brought in a new quarterback. Still have some good guys on offense: Devon Achane, Jalen Waddle. Um, they did lose Bradley Chubb on the defensive side, so I wonder how that's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
But you know, Jeff Hafley, he's pretty well regarded in Green Bay. He's going to do good for the Dolphins. We'll
Yeah.
see.
I
But
think
yeah,
you saw like the one thing, like you were mentioning with the sample size, especially, is like we saw with Malik when he came in last year for the Packers, it was a little bit unexpected for other teams. You're not game planning. You're never game planning for the
yeah,
backup quarterback, especially a backup quarterback that has legs like Malik Willis does or any
mhm,
rushing quarterback. That's never something you can really game plan for. So you're kind of catching teams off guard, right? He would start for a game or two, maybe in sequence, but never anything where teams would have a long look at him. So now that teams are going to be having a whole full season of film on him, right? All his
yeah,
past starts, and as the season goes on, they're going to get more and more film on him. So can you adapt to that? Can you change to that
mhm,
when other teams are changing their looks on defense based on that? Like you said, Jeff Hafley, a coach that came over from Boston College to be the defensive coordinator the last 2 years. And it's not necessarily that he left Boston College because there was any issues with his head coaching or anything like that. He was just sort of he said on record multiple times he was done with like the way the pay structure was working with NIL and
mhm,
everything for his college players and things like that, and he just wanted to get back to coaching ball, which he was able to do.
yeah,
Last year as a defensive coordinator, and now just a little bit elevated position in head coach, but he still gets to do that with a new team. We'll see how that works. So let's talk
yeah.
about a couple other teams. Maybe move on to losers, free agency and teams, or like players that we saw like maybe like on the losing end of some deals. What are some teams or players you had in mind for that?
Yes, I think I'll start with the 49ers. I think that they made some moves, but I think one move that was a little questionable for a lot of fans was bringing in Mike Evans and not just bringing in Evans, but putting him on a 3 year, 60 mil deal. That was a little questionable. Not that Mike Evans isn't a good player. He's still, when healthy, one of the best 50-50 ball guys in the league. You know, he obviously tied Jerry Rice's record for most 1,000 yard receiving seasons in a row, but at this point in his career, the emphasis is when he's healthy. You know, can he put together a healthy season for a team that's already destroyed by injuries year in and year out? So, um, I mean, if he's healthy, it's a good signing. They have a lot of like kind of gadget guy receivers and like Ricky Pearsall, like players like that. But he can really be a consistent piece in their offense if he's healthy.
Getting a guy who's a prototypical wide receiver, one build
Exactly,
and everything.
like the
Yeah,
tall height and everything. But
yeah,
and then even like on Mike Evans's point of view, I mean, I got a question. Like he played with the Bucks for I think 12 years it was, won a ring with them. He's one of the goats of their franchise. Probably like he can go anywhere in like Tampa Bay he wants to. He's welcome
yeah.
anywhere. But
Free dinner anywhere in Tampa Bay, I'm
exactly,
sure.
dinner's on wherever.
Yeah.
So, but it's like I don't know. Like, would you rather just retire as a Buck for your legacy? It's just a little bit taint the legacy a little bit. I don't think he left the team on bad terms necessarily, but just a little questionable. I feel like could have been nice retiring as a Buck, but
I agree with
we
you.
don't know what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah,
So
I'm
we
sure
keep
he's
an open
still
mind.
like assuming nothing's gone bad, like you said, with the no relations with the sour team soured or anything like
Yeah,
that. I'm sure he's still going to be in their Hall of Fame or their Ring of Honor, whatever they have down there
definitely.
in Tampa Bay. But I'm sure it
Yeah,
definitely feels a little bit weird not seeing him on the Bucks like for next
yeah.
season, I would say.
So what's I mean, yeah. So that's one loser.
Yeah,
Obviously you're a Packers fan,
yeah.
and they've definitely been probably one of the more inactive teams in free agency, but they still made some moves. What are your thoughts on what they've done so far?
So I think, I mean, the whole team I wouldn't necessarily put in the loser category because we did make some moves on the defensive line and things like that, and getting especially Javon Hargrave to
Mhm.
bolster that defensive line. So him and Devontae Wyatt paired up at the two nose tackle positions right there with Micah Parsons, the LVN starting on the edge. Obviously, he's very good. And moving on for Sean Gary and somehow getting that fourth round pick for him.
That's a good
Thank you,
trade.
Jerry
Yeah.
Jones, again for being able to let us fleece you in that deal. But I think the biggest loser for our team, especially if you have to pick one position group, has got to be the cornerback room.
Mm,
And it's a position of need that's been there almost since for the last like 2 or 3 years running. Even at the end of when we still had Jerry Alexander, a guy that I thought was probably a top 5, top 10 corner in the league when he was healthy, started to be not healthy as much. So you couldn't really say that about him or the room entirely. Then once we moved off him, you didn't really see the impact from the rest of the guys behind him, right? So now we're going to a season with a starting cornerbacks of Keyshawn Nixon on one side, a guy that we saw couldn't really hang with the best wide receiver ones in the league.
yeah.
Sometimes even wide receiver two last year. We saw him get beaten on multiple occasions, especially in clutch spots in the game. And then starting across from him, more than likely, is going to be new cornerback that we're adding, Benjamin St. Juste, obviously from the Commanders originally, and then the Chargers the last year or so. So it's just going to be a little bit of work in progress there because those are two guys that we necessarily haven't seen the best of play from, like the highest level of plays from so far.
Yeah.
And then starting behind that is going to be Carrington Valentine, a guy, a seventh round pick for us who has been playing pretty well, definitely playing above the seventh round marking that he got when he came to the league initially. But it's still three guys that you don't want to see like as your like starters at the
Yeah.
position. You want to see a
Yeah.
little bit more like support there. So I'd still like to see something done in the draft there to see if we can supplement that with anything. But in terms of free agency, I still would have liked to see something done there. I think getting Javon Hargrave and then Zaire Franklin, another linebacker that we got, sort of to replace Quay Walker and just let Edge Cooper just like play like with his head on fire almost, just like go after and just like mess everything up for the offense. Go after the ball, go after the quarterback and things like that. So just freeing up his plate a little bit. The safety room's obviously very strong, still led by Xavier McKinney, and then two young guys, Evan Williams and Javon Bullard. And the offense itself was still pretty solid last year. And re-signing Sean Ryan in the offensive line for our center now, and hoping Zach Tom gets back healthy and things like that. Jordan Morgan starting at left tackle. So just making sure like everything else is secure is good. But that cornerback room still really needs a lot of help, and we'll see how much we can do in the draft to like support that.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everything you said there is valid. One other acquisition was like the loss of Romeo Dobbs to the Patriots. I mean, he was definitely Jordan Love's one of his go-to guys in that offense, but I feel like he's not the most irreplaceable guy in that offense. Still have guys like we saw Matthew Golden break out in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Christian Watson healthy is a stud. What do you think about the receiver room going
So
next
I
year?
think the biggest thing with the receiver room is we just have to see, can we get a full season of Christian Watson healthy now that he's sort of filled into this wide receiver one role, the prototypical wide receiver one type, obviously the height and build and everything.
Yeah.
And then can Matthew Golden really ascend to that wide receiver two, bordering on that wide receiver one status? For the longest time, we wanted to say Jaden Reed is that guy or Romeo Dobbs is that guy. Obviously hasn't been. I've been a big Dontavian Wicks guy, as you know, but he's obviously not that, and he's more of that supporting wide receiver 2-3 role. That can have a couple good games here and there, but we really need to see that consistency from Christian Watson and Matthew Golden. I'd love for them to get that working this offseason, right? We saw a lot of the receivers were working together in the past offseason working. And I think that really helped the chemistry with Jordan Love especially. I want to see Matthew Golden be incorporated into that, and I just want to see by just getting more and more reps, a whole offseason together, as opposed to one of them just coming in as a rookie and learning things differently. I want to see if they're all working together, can that actually help, and can we get an even stronger wide receiver group? Jordan Love obviously taking a step up last year. I'm guessing he can take one more step and get a little bit closer. Can he like cement himself in that? Like right now, I feel like I'm very comfortable in saying he's a top 10, close to a top 5 quarterback, but there's definitely still some arguments that can be made there, which I can't oppose. I want to see him make sure that he's firmly in that top 10 debate and getting very close to that top 5 like status next season. Just getting like the more synthesis and more cohesion among the entire wide receiver room with the quarterback himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see what happens with the Packers. Let's go to the AFC and a team that, forget about win or loser. You just got to question what's going on in the front office. The Baltimore Ravens, it's that whole Max Crosby stuff. As a Steelers fan, I went from being like, oh my goodness, this is literally like Max Crosby's in our division twice a year. And then we saw the deal fell through. Do we know if it was a failed physical? The Ravens kind of back out last second because they were nervous. Bringing in a first-time head coach, having no first-round picks in the next 2 years.
Picks on the line, yeah.
No one really knows, but I think that this is definitely going to hurt their reputation for some time.
Yeah.
Teams are going to,
be a little bit wary of dealing with them or trading with them in the future. I think that could definitely impact that. They do try and make it up with the Trey Hendrickson acquisition after, but I think you would still say, I think you poll every GM in the league, they probably still want Max Crosby over Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, definitely.
Not a slight on Trey Hendrickson or anything like that. Max Crosby is just that more talented. But like you said, I think that's really going to impact their ability to do deals in the future. Like if you're a GM for the Steelers or I'm the GM for the Packers, like how wary would you now be if Eric DeCosta calls you up on the phone and wants to like have a conversation about like, can we trade for some player? Are you really sure that that's even going to be a trade that goes through? Or can you be sure you're going to get the player that you're looking for in return? Or is there something they might be hiding about the player's condition or something like that? So that's something that like they're definitely going to be losing out in the long term.
I mean, we're seeing for like the Raiders right now. Like, I mean, they, as you mentioned, they made a ton of moves, and they made those moves with the mindset of Max Crosby being gone from their defense. And so you got to think like, would they have had a different approach if they knew Crosby was back on their team? Would they have maybe gone a different route? Doesn't seem like those signings are in jeopardy. Good for them, but we'll see what happens. But definitely got to be a little cautious doing business with the Ravens. Let's talk about another team, the Colts. I think they made two really big contract moves on their team, Alec Pierce and Daniel Jones. I guess we'll start with Daniel Jones. I think that I was shocked. He got a 2-year, I believe, $88 million contract, so $44 million a year. And I mean, to me, I was like, would he even have got that contract if he was healthy? It's the
Yeah.
fact that he got it coming off of a with a torn Achilles is like shocking to me. It's
Yeah.
obviously, the Colts were 8-2 at one point last year. They were looking like Daniel Jones turned his career around. Shane Steichen, like the quarterback whisperer, helped revive his career.
Yeah.
Number one seed in the AFC. Jonathan Taylor getting like all-time talks, putting him up there with like Damian Tomlinson.
And then you check in at the end of the season, you have
What happened?
44-year-old Philip Rivers starting at quarterback for them.
Yeah,
So
it's
quite
like-
the turnaround for them.
craziness. So I think that seems like a bit, pretty significant overpay for Daniel Jones. I know the quarterback market is a bit insane right now. You got obviously guys like Tua getting 50 mil a year, stuff like that. But I know you got to secure a quarterback in a quarterback needy league. But for that price, is it worth it for a guy who's going to be coming off an Achilles tear, who is questionable if he can still be that guy? We don't know. But what about Alec Pierce? What do you think?
And I think even Alec Pierce too, like we talked about previously, like the center market, we didn't see the Tyler Linderbaum deal being an outlier. We saw that it's really going to increase the deal more because every player just wants to get a little bit more top dollar than the previous one got.
Definitely.
This wide receiver deal is certainly something that every agent and every quarterback, every wide receiver is going to be looking to, telling their agent, "Hey, Alec Pierce got that. I need a little bit more than that at least."
Yeah.
And talking about like at least for my team, like the Packers, for example, Christian Watson, I know is going to be going to his agent this offseason saying, "Hey, I'm running out of my contract soon because we just only had a small extension, a 1-year extension." So I want to see like that type of number on my deal. And I'm sure a lot of other receivers are going to be saying that too.
Yeah.
So just the amount of money they paid and for the amount of production or value that we think Alec Pierce brings to a team is just not something that I would say is probably the wisest decision. So I think they may have made a misstep in there. It depends. Maybe they have like a lot of money that they just want to get rid of. Like they have to use the money somehow. So I guess in that sense, you could see it being all right. But I think they may have made a misstep in their calculations with the amount of money they're putting into these two guys. I guess we'll see if it pays off. Like you said, they had a really good start last season. Can they recreate that and sort of extend it off into like the end of this season?
Yeah, I think Alec Pierce is definitely a good receiver. He's a great deep ball guy, got the speed, pretty good frame and everything. But is he worth that price tag that he got? We don't know.
Yeah.
Also on the defensive side of things, going back to Max Crosby and everything, allegedly they were actually supposed to land Trey Hendrickson before last second switch up to the Ravens, and then obviously losing Zaire Franklin to your Packers, some losses on the defensive side. So if you're a Colts fan, you got to think around this time last year, early in the season last year, you're on cloud nine. Your team's insanely exceeding your expectations.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now it's there's so many question marks on that team. You got to
Too much
wonder
uncertainty around the team. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to cover it for the winners and losers of free agency. Overall, good discussion. Next week, obviously, we'll be in the middle of March Madness. So I think next week we're going to do our typical try to learn everything about college basketball in a couple days and fill out our brackets, everything. And we'll do some bracket talk and maybe a little bit more NBA next time.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next week.
All right.